relative velocity, or rather, a different vector notation. We're always using vectors. This is just a different vector notation. So I'm just going to write it down, and we'll talk about it in a second. And there's the equation usually given for relative velocity. It says that vector A to C is equal to vector A from B plus B to C. And let's draw that as a picture. What am I talking about? If I had two vectors, and I had one vector here that went to this point here, let's call it, we'll start it at point A and go to point B, and then we have one that goes from B to point C here. The resultant vector would just be from A to C, and I think maybe you can start seeing what's going on here. So back in the day, we used to be cowboyish and say, okay, vector 1 and vector 2, and then, our final vector, v final. And it worked fine. It worked fine that vector 1 plus vector 2 is equal to vector final. But it's a little cowboyish. It's a little cowboy. It's a little cowboyish. Okay, this is a formal way of writing it, where we're saying vector A to C is equal to A to B plus B to C. So that's what we're going to call. We're going to call this vector here. We'll call this vector here vector. I shouldn't use an arrow in a vector diagram, but A to B, and this one will be vector B to C, and then this vector will be A to C. And this can be used, it can be used almost the same as units, where you can say that A over C is the same thing as A over B and B over C. And you can see that these things cancel. So you're just left with A over C. And that makes sense because B is really an intermediate point. You don't need to go to B to get to C. You can go A right to C. Okay, so these things can be stacked on top. You can expand these types of concepts. So you can have vector of A to D is equal to vector of A to B plus vector of B to C plus vector of C to D. Okay, and these can all mean different things. And it's usually can be expanded. And it's usually used in relative velocity. We'll see some examples coming up shortly where we instead of saying A and C and B, we talk about boats and water and ground and velocities, vectors relative to other things. Okay, so this is just a formal way, vector notation, a formal way of writing vectors instead of just labeling them 1, 2, and final.